We are Scott and Cassandra from the United States and Cayman Islands, showing that deep travel connects us with places and people around the world.
We are the Forever Explorers. So today we wanted to talk a little bit of sharing a comparison of taking a group tour versus planning a big trip on your own. We have now done both. A few years ago, we planned a big trip to Western Europe with our teenage kids, and we had not traveled there on our own as a family before. And it felt really scary. The stakes were high. There were 5 of us to have opinions.
Right, and we had to please them too. We had to make sure everybody was happy.
Yes.
And that's very difficult.
So in the beginning, the very first trip to Europe together, we chose a group tour. So we're going to compare both experiences for you.
Yeah, and since then we've done several trips on our own that we've planned on our own. So we want to talk about some of the differences. And one of those, we'll start with the cost, which seems like kind of the obvious difference.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a group tour, so we did a quick comparison, and we'll put some of the numbers on the screen, just comparing nowadays. So we did this trip a few years ago.
And it was a bus tour.
The big group tour, right?
Yes.
It was a bus tour. So if we did the exact same things now, planning it on our own versus taking that same group tour right now, planning on our own would cost about 30 to 40% less than the group tour.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. That's a huge consideration for most people. So here's a comparison of the specific numbers of doing a group tour versus planning on our own. So this is if we were to do the same exact tour that we've been talking about in a group or by ourselves. You can see the total cost. It's based on 5 people, and the group tour cost is pretty straightforward. But then there's a recommended tip amount that you add in at the end for the tour guide. Because they do a great job, they should get a nice tip. So you can see the total, $17,295. These are at today's prices, even though we did this tour a few years ago. Planning ourselves, DIY planning, we have it broken down into accommodations, transport, and then food and other things. So the total cost per person comes out to about $1,100 less planning ourselves versus doing the group tour. So that's per person, and then you can see the total for 5 people. It's a pretty big difference. So it comes out to be about a 30 to 40% difference total, and there will be some variation. These are not exact numbers because it depends on the exact dates you travel and a lot of other variables, but it's pretty close. So that's a huge advantage, planning on your own. But we're going to talk about some of the other advantages and disadvantages of planning on your own, because some people, they might want to spend extra money just because they get more value out of it. They get a tour guide,
You don't have to think about it.
Right, you don't have to think about it.
You pick the destinations, you find a group that does that, and we spent a lot of time planning our own trips. So there's a big advantage to just saying, hey, this group is going to these 5 countries for 2 weeks. Let them just drive me there and take care of some of the meals in the hotels, and you don't have to do anything. That's why it costs more.
Yeah, there's huge value in that.
We did enjoy that part of it, so we'll go into more detail.
Exactly, yep.
So our second consideration is the stress of planning. So whether you are going to do a group tour or plan it on your own. When we went to Europe for the first time as a family, we really wanted to get it right. And that's why we ultimately decided on the group bus tour, that someone else had planned that all out. We knew the itinerary was tried and true, and they were going to think about all of those extra things. We didn't have to plan the hotels, the transportation to places. Even some of the meals were provided. So that was a big advantage of the group tour. Thankfully, this isn't an issue now, but if there's any other regulations to be aware of at the time, when we went in 2022, when we were just coming out of the COVID pandemic, and there were still a lot of regulations for testing. And luckily, they were actually lifted when we were on the tour, but months prior, planning this, we didn't know what to expect. So we wanted the group director to handle anything like that.
Yeah, and things were changing so quickly during that time, all the regulations.
Yes.
So it was nice to rely on that tour director, and we didn't have to worry about it.
Yes. If we had planned that on our own, I think that would have had an extra layer of stress, not knowing what was going to happen if we missed something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about flexibility. So a group, if you go on a group tour, there are some things that you have to choose. Like we had to choose the tour that we wanted to do. And that, honestly, that took a while to do, to pick the one.
There are a lot out there.
Yeah, there are a lot of choices. And then you can choose excursions and things like that, but they're all during set times and set places, and you're really limited in your flexibility. But if you plan on your own, obviously you have full flexibility to do anything you want, plan anything you want. So that's fantastic. But that comes back to the stress of planning again, because if you have to plan every little detail, that can be stressful for some people, especially the first time that you're making a big trip. So going back to the times and places of those excursions, when you're on a group tour, they have these set excursions. Some of them everybody goes on, some of them you pick and choose, but they tend to go at the peak times, and these tours are often during the peak travel times of the season as well. And so some of those places that you go to can be really crowded. So that was one thing that we didn't like about the group tour. We loved the places that we went to, but it was just so crowded all the time. We were going in the middle of the day, sometimes during the hottest times with the biggest crowds of people.
But we can share where we went. So this tour, it was 2 nights everywhere. So 2 nights in London, then 2 nights in Paris, France, 2 nights in Lucerne, Switzerland, and then we went down to Venice, Italy, over to Montecatini for 1 night, and then to Rome for 2 nights.
We stopped in Pisa during the day in between.
Pisa, Florence, we saw some things like that.
Yeah, so you can probably guess what some of the most crowded places were.
And then the 5th country was Vatican City within Rome. So we 5 countries in 2 weeks. We were pretty tired.
Yeah, so one big example was Montmartre. It's this big hill in Paris. Amazing views. But this tour, we kind of decided last minute to go on this excursion with the group. And they went at the most crowded time. There were so many people up there. We were constantly
touching everybody,
bumping into people. So it was really stressful for us. Some people like that kind of environment, but that was a little much.
It was too much
for us.
Too people-y.
Yeah. And another one was Venice. So when we went to Venice, it was beautiful in the morning. We got there, I think, at about 9 in the morning, maybe a little bit later. And while we were arriving, all the other tour boats were starting to arrive, because you go by boat. You have to take a ferry there. And in the beginning, it was great. There were not a lot of people. We were walking around having fun. We had an early lunch, and it wasn't too crowded. But then everybody arrived, and it was so crowded. And then it got really hot. So one thing we'd really like to do if we go back to Venice someday and plan it on our own is we want to stay overnight.
Yeah.
Because once all those tour boats leave at like 4 or 5 p.m., there's hardly any tourists there. So it's a lot quieter, and you can have a nice dinner. So we really want to do that next time.
So our next point is, let's talk about the tour guides and the camaraderie that you get from meeting people in your group that you really can't do if you're just traveling on your own. Yeah. So I did enjoy this. 2 weeks in a bus with strangers. By the end of the 2 weeks, we weren't strangers. It was really nice. So there's an advantage there. You get to meet new people, choose to keep in touch with them afterwards if you like. The tour guide was wonderful. Jane was her name. Yeah, and I never forgot her. And they clearly love what they do. So that's really nice. Yeah. So traveling on your own, obviously, if you're just with your family, you don't get that. So that might be a pro for some people to do things in a group to meet new people. So when you're traveling on your own, you can, of course, still have that bonding experience with your family or whoever you're traveling with. If you're doing a friend's trip, just remember there are always many, many local resources to use. So you can do mini groups by doing day trips somewhere as a group. There are walking tours that you can do as groups, so affordable. Some are free, you just tip the tour guide. So, and then if you have questions, if something happens, such as we had an example where last year when we were in the Netherlands, my dad was with us and he felt like he was getting sick, but his ear was bothering him quite a bit. And we thought, we better find a doctor to look at this. We had not seen a doctor before in the Netherlands. So we asked the hotel staff. So remember, they are more than willing to help and equipped, because we went straight to the front desk. She had a whole folder of resources that she looked through, made a call for us, and got us an appointment that was just a 10-minute walk away. The appointment was going to be 20 minutes from that time. We couldn't believe it. So yeah, it's getting help, medical help. You'll be surprised at how quickly that someone will help you. Ask questions when you're at restaurants. When we were in Mürren, in Switzerland, in one trip, that's the trip that we planned on our own. We had some ideas where we wanted to go, but still trying to find tips on which restaurant should we try, or the restaurant staff. Just ask them. They're so happy to share what they know, and they were able to give us lots of tips on things to do, places to visit, times to go.
A fun story.
Yeah.
When we were in Mürren, when we arrived there, we arrived in Lauterbrunnen, and we had to get to Mürren, and we planned it in advance, but we didn't realize that we had to take cable cars up into the mountains in order to get to the town of Mürren. So we went to a restaurant in Lauterbrunnen, and it was getting pretty late already when we arrived. But we asked the waitress at the restaurant, how do we get to Mürren from here? And she explained it to us, and we were a little surprised. We had to take a bus
Oh my gosh.
to the cable cars, and then we had to take 2 cable cars to get up to Mürren.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was an amazing
It's not normal
experience.
for us, but like, okay, put me on a cable car and take me up to this mountain town up there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So there are always people who can help. That's the moral of the
Yes.
story. So the next thing I want to focus on is a lot of times on our channel we talk about deep travel. When you're doing group travel, you tend to hop around to different places pretty quickly, and you don't get to choose how long you want to stay in an area or what to do, like we've talked about before. So it's really difficult to meet people, connect with a place, see the things that you want to see, and really get to know a place. But if you're planning on your own, you can do that a little bit more. You could plan to stay in a place a little bit longer, something that you're really interested in, and really get to know the place better. So we've done some of that with some of our travels recently, like if you've seen some of our Netherlands videos, the Cayman Islands, and even Scotland. Even though we don't have family in Scotland, I feel like we've spent a good amount of time there. We got to know the places that we were in pretty well. We want to go back and get to know it better.
We actually have family in Scotland.
Oh, that's true. We do.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Family is big.
We have a lot of family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll forget.
But we weren't going there to spend time with family.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we do tend to bump into family
Yep.
everywhere we go.
I can usually find someone. So our next point is how to build confidence to lead up to planning on your own. So if you choose to do a group tour first, to build your confidence, we suggest doing what we did. We had a group tour, but we decided to fly in 2 or 3 days before the group started in London to have that time to ourselves. First of all, to get used to the time difference. It was a 6-hour time difference, so that gave us time to rest. but it also gave us time to go and use the public transportation, go on the tube, go to Hyde Park, go to see some of the things that we knew we weren't going to do as part of the London leg of the trip. Gosh, that was so nice. That just showed us like, oh my gosh, we can get around. Now we get it.
That was a great start to the trip.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So that's one thing you can do. Add a few days before your trip or afterwards, so you're not rushing just to get to the tour and to go back home. So in hindsight, we knew that we actually had the tools and the capacity to plan this, but it was just a comfort thing for us to do the group.
Oh, what about Mount Pilatus?
Oh my gosh. So in Switzerland is amazing. We went to Lucerne, Switzerland for 2 nights as part of the group tour. But during that full day in the middle, we had a choice of doing excursions that we could have purchased through the group, or just do whatever we wanted. And we had been researching this before. We learned about Mount Pilatus as part of another group tour, and that we didn't choose that one. And then the one that we chose didn't have that as an option. So we decided to just take the day off and go on our own. And we had never been to Switzerland before, and we figured it out. It's once you learn the public transportation in one of the European cities, they're pretty similar. There's always people to ask, where do I go?
We had to ask people.
Yeah, we always
Yeah,
ask.
I remember that because we had difficulty figuring out what to do because it just seemed too easy. They didn't check our tickets or anything.
Yeah,
We just
it's like
just
the
had a
honor
piece of
system.
paper that we printed out. That was our ticket, and we were just supposed to go on the train and go. But we had to ask somebody about that because we thought we would have to scan it or something like that. But no.
See, this is why we love to travel. It is so good for your brain to be in situations you have to think quick like that and to adapt quickly. These places are safe. There's always someone willing to help. Most of these places, like the big, commonly like European countries that you think of going, like most of people will speak English if that's your first language. So there's that comfort there that there's always someone to ask.
Yep.
So that builds your confidence, knowing that you can figure things out if you have a question.
Yeah, so you can start with a group tour if you want to do that and
Mix something in on your
just
own.
get out on your own a little bit to build that confidence a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we did. So this is just a short list of some of the advantages and disadvantages of group travel versus planning on your own. You can feel free to reach out to us if you
I love
have
that.
any other questions. We can't cover everything in one video, but we'll be doing more videos in the future like this. Something to keep in mind though is we're kind of generalizing here, talking about groups versus planning on your own. There are lots of different types of groups, and there are some that actually do focus on smaller groups and sustainable travel and making deeper connections and things like that. So shop around, look for different types of groups. Some of those may be a little bit more expensive than the larger groups, for obvious reasons. So if cost isn't the only factor, you might be able to find a type of group that really fits you.
That was why we chose the budget group that we did. It was more affordable,
Right.
and then it was still a big figure. That we saved for like 2 years for this. So it's a family of 5. So yeah, you look out to see what's out there for your budget, the number of people going, and there's a group out there for anybody.
Yeah, and for ours, there were still even higher tiers that we could have chosen for other types of excursions and better food and better accommodations.
Yep.
So you can find a group that fits you. And also, each time we think about travel, so we're not the all-knowing experts who can
No.
plan anything really quickly and efficiently.
Mm-mm.
It's still stressful for us to plan our own trips. So we still, anytime we go to a new place, we still weigh these positives and negatives and think about whether we want to do a group tour or do it on our own. And sometimes we do a little bit of both. We might go to a place on our own, plan a little bit, and then join smaller group tours in that area. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but we still think about it every time and try to decide what's going to be best for us. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like, reach out in the comments.
Yeah, and especially if you have an idea of a video that we could go deeper into one of these topics, please reach out and put it in the comments.
Yeah.
That helps us plan our future videos.
Yeah. See you in the next one.